Good morning. This is the Arena on Voice of the People 96.1 FM. My name is Gesire Agua. It's a current affairs program. We check out some of the trending stories and see how they affect us as Nigerians and Nigeria as a whole. Today we'll be citing something really interesting that has passed first reading in the National Assembly, a bill seeking 6-year single term for president. And governors skills first reading. The House of Reps on Wednesday passed through the first reading a bill seeking to amend the 1999 Constitution to provide for a single term of 6 years for the offices of the President, the offices of the state governors, and the local government area chairman to curb wastages occasioned by 4-year periodic elections. The private member bill was sponsored by the members representing Idiator North, Idiator South, Federal Constituency, Imo State, and 50 other lawmakers. Now, the proposed bill seeks to alter Section 7, 135, 137, 180, and 182, subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution. Clause 2 seeks to amend Section 7 of the Principal Act by inserting a new subsection 5 immediately after the subsection 4 and before the extant subsection 5 as follows. It says, a holder of the office of a local government chairman shall vacate his office at expiration of a period of 6 years commencing from the date such holder was elected into office. Clause 3 of the bill seeks to amend Section 135, subsections 2, 2A, and 3 of the Principal Act by replacing the word for with 6 to read, subject to the provisions of subsection 1 of this section, the President shall vacate his office at the expiration of a period of 6 years, single term, commencing from the date when A. In the case of a person first elected as president under this constitution, he took the oath of allegiance and the oath of office, and B. In any other case, the person last elected to that office under this constitution took the oath of allegiance and oath of office, or would, but for his death, have taken such oaths. There are so many clauses. If you want to go and get all that detail, you can check it out on Punch newspaper this morning. A bill seeking to give 6-year single term for presidents and governors scales the first reading. For our conversation this morning, of course, we have Mr. Larry. Good morning to you. Welcome.
Good morning, listen. How are we today?
We're doing good. There's a lot in the news. I wanted to get your take on this before we even touch like this matter, right? The House of Reps yesterday said they were going to take out 50% of their salaries and give it to the cause of food sufficiency in the country. What's your take on that?
Sounds good soundbite. But I think the House of Reps should do things that are more fundamental. The salary remains, so what you are doing is you take 50%, you donate it for some time, and you go back to the status quo. And I think what they should be thinking about, first of all, is how to cut the cost of running the National Assembly permanently, and then how to legislate in such a way that the nation will function properly, and most importantly, how to do oversight to stop the excesses, especially the wasteful spending of the executive arm of government. I think that's, for me, a better gift than dashing us money, the Babiala syndrome in Nigeria. We need to rise above that, and we need to stop being impressed with people diverting our attention by doing things that look good, but they are not really good for us. So they have to solve the problems permanently. They have power to create the environment that will make it unnecessary for them to sacrifice half of their salary. I think what they should focus on is doing the job that they have been elected to do excellently. If they do that job excellently, there won't be need to dash us money.
Well, Mr. Rufai was of the opinion that they shouldn't dash us their salaries, their allowances, half of their allowances. That one is bigger than the salary. That's the one that they should give.
They shouldn't even that. I understand the salary and allowances game, but the point is that they shouldn't be talking of dashing us anything at all. That's the point. They should be talking of doing their jobs well. We didn't elect them to dash off salary allowances. We elected them to do their jobs. If they do their jobs, the issue of dashing us money because of food sufficiency or for any other reasons, that for that matter, shouldn't arise. I also understand that they gave the contingent, Olympic contingent, 100 million.
Mm.
But that's coming too late in the day. You don't dash people money on the eve of their departure. What I mean is when their departure is imminent or when they are already there. You support them to train, sponsor them to train to win. See, I don't know why we are like this as a people. We don't want to do things well. We would rather wait. When there's an emergency, we start throwing money at the situation. And then people who are not tutored will actually begin to clap for the person that he released money, he dashed 100 million. To what end? Some of these guys didn't have proper training facilities. They couldn't travel to engage opponents in training so that they will actually be world-class competitors, and then you just wait for the eve of the event. When the event is just about to start, you give them 100 million. So what are they going to do with it? You say you're motivating them. The better motivation is to actually train them. Some of these countries are going to compete against have prepared their own contingents for 8 years. That is what I mean. Sometimes they start preparing someone to compete in the next 2 Olympic Games, not this next one. They get someone who is 6 years and they start preparing the person for gymnastics against the next 8 years or 12 years. And then we are here dashing the money just before the Olympics and we start clapping for them. This dashing money syndrome, it doesn't make sense. Whether you're dashing allowance or you're dashing salary is not important. What is important is do your job excellently so that nobody needs to dash any other person money. If we do our jobs well, that is, you do your job as a legislator well, as the country functions well, farmers are able to go to the farm, teachers are able to teach in schools, pupils will go to school and come back without fear of being abducted. Businessmen will do business without crying about multiple taxation and all of the challenges of doing business in Nigeria. Companies will not be running away from Nigeria. On the contrary, they will come in to invest. If you give us an enabling environment to prosper, you won't be dashing us money. You will also take your own money and be happy and will be happy. I don't want any dash, whether it is salary or allowance. It's absolutely unnecessary. If they focus on the job at hand and they do it well, they won't need to dash us anything. And I don't want them to dash us anything. They should just focus on doing their jobs well, not being in cahoots with the presidency and the executive, the budgets, they do libraries, they do car park, they are just take our money away. Then after you, that's just part of the money you took away. Who does that?
All right, let's move on to our topic of the day, right? We have the House of Reps seeking to amend the Constitution for a 6-year single term in office for the governors, for the president, and the local government chairman. What's your initial reaction to this?
My initial reaction to this is that while it may not be entirely a bad idea that they are thinking of what to do to strengthen the political system in Nigeria, I just feel that we have a lot of fundamental problems that they should also be thinking about. When I look at the bills they want to sponsor and the things they're generally trying to do, I realize that they're also looking at some of those fundamental things, like making sure that we finish all electoral matters before we swear in our political office holders and all of that. I just felt that the most important job they should do for us is to give us laws that will strengthen our democratic experience so that we will not have issues where, for instance, we wake up and say we have spent billions on beavers, and then tomorrow we say, oh, beavers is optional. You know, when laws are properly legislated, drafted and legislated and are explicit, we won't have those conversations. And that is actually very critical when you are looking at this issue of whether you should do 6 years straight or 4 years straight. The 6 years straight sounds appealing, but it's dangerous in a country like Nigeria. While it's not an entirely bad idea, I looked at the pros and the cons, and it looks as if the cons outweigh the pros. And it's a concept that has been coming up in the United States for almost 200 years. more than 150 times. It has come up in the constitutional reform, but it has never passed. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but I'm thinking the first thought that came to my mind is who will restrain a bad president for 6 years or who will remove him? That's the first, you asked my initial reaction. I just laid the foundation before telling you. That was my first question. So how do we endure a bad president for 6 years? I know there may be some advantages, but if you don't have a strong democratic system where a bad president can be removed or impeached, where you must have a safety valve, because what it means, the way Nigeria works now, you can't remove a president unless the president dies in office or the president finishes his tenure. So if we are stuck with that system and you give us a bad president for 6 years, even if it's one tenure, you have removed our capacity to even say stop at this point. Considering that our democracy is not really working very well, I think it's dangerous to give a man power for 6 straight years without finding a way to restrain him, because part of the challenge is that he will not be concerned about re-election. So he will either be too good or too bad. He will either decide, okay, I will implement all the good policies. What will happen? Let it happen. If the heavens will fall, let them fall. But on the other hand, they can also say, oh, this is beautiful. I will behave like a bull in a China shop, do what I want to do, steal all the money. After all, I will not be asking for the votes again. It can work both ways. It's a two-edged sword, and it's dangerous. I think for us to even go in that direction, we must strengthen our political institution and find ways to ensure that if a president or governor doesn't behave well, we can remove the person from office constitutionally. That's one of the advantages, one of the major advantages of the 4 years. And I don't think the 4 years is too long. But because we have very expensive elections, and our elections are not even a guarantee that you can remove the person who is not doing well, we're fine. We're enduring the 4 years. But if you ask me, sincerely speaking, giving ourselves a 6 year straight presidency or governorship and all of that, without thinking about how to call the bad politicians to order, is like committing suicide. Because a bad governor, a bad president, a bad whoever will just wreck the place for 6 years straight. Imagine if you have 2 bad persons for 6 years run, 12 years, nothing working. I mean, we have removed incumbents before using the 4 year election. We removed the Hakim successfully. We removed this guy in. We have removed quite a few governors in the Southwest. That is, after first tenure, the person is removed, and then sometimes they bounce back. But the most important thing is that sometimes the fear of not winning the election is a spur to do something significant.
Exactly.
So it's not entirely something we should discountenance. But I'm saying that considering our level of maturity, the problems they are trying to solve with it may create bigger problems for us. Because they will tell you, okay, that a lot of money is spent campaigning for elections. And that's for elections. But the state is in shambles, politically speaking, because he wants to install the person who will succeed him. So Nigeria is a peculiar case. We should be careful when we do permutations for Nigeria. Nigeria is one country where things don't respond to normal economic laws or political laws. We are just a peculiar breed here. So you don't just sit down and assume that, if you do it like this, you get that result. You may not. You may get a very terrible result. So I think we should really, really take a hard look at that suggestion. The more difficult job for us is to put laws in place that will enable us actually have a firm democracy where people's votes will count, where we can hold people accountable, where impeachment is not used as a weapon, a political weapon to stop people from running for elections or to punish deputy governors. Meanwhile, governors are not impeached. The principal people who damage our states never get impeached. That's at least in recent times, nobody has been impeached. But they use it anyhow to remove governors who they think are confrontational or they are threatening their wish in any way. I think we need to focus on some of those fundamentals because without those fundamentals, where democracy works, even if you get the 6 year tenure, you will just move us from frying pan to fire. My take.
I don't know. You said Nigeria's case is a peculiar case, but is there any style of governance that would actually work for Nigeria? Because 4 years is a long time, and before you can unseat a president after those 4 years, we haven't had any president who did just one term. We haven't had any so far
Yes,
since
we haven't had any, basically because the bad president for 6 years, how does it solve your problem? How does it solve your problem? Having a bad president for 6 years. It doesn't solve your problem either. So what you should be focusing on is to actually legislate in such a way that lighten the electorate as much as possible. And this is not something that will happen overnight, but it can happen in a reasonably short time if you have consensus leaders and
if there's
politicians. And when
political
I say
will.
leaders, I don't mean governors and presidents. When I say leaders, I mean leaders across the board. Because one of the things that we have actually done in this country is to interpret leadership to mean only political leadership. The truth is that political leadership is not just, listen carefully, while they may be the most powerful leaders when they get into office, we need to also consider the fact that there are other leaders that wield a whole lot of influence for longer periods of time, who the politicians run to when they want votes. Why do they run to the churches? Why do they run to the mosques? Why do they run to the market associations? Why do they run to labor? Because those are institutions that have enduring followership. They are also leaders. When we begin to get our people to think straight, when a crook comes to them because he's contesting for presidency, they will not support him. They will not begin to look at the benefits they will get if the person wins the election. So if our true leaders will actually imbibe the tenets of democracy and use their positions to promote real democracy and democratic experience, we are going to tame the politicians. But when we pretend that the only leadership we have in this country is political leadership, which is part of the lie that we have told ourselves for too long, what will happen is the political leaders will continue to damage all of us. And that is what we're experiencing now. So we need to begin to look at how to strengthen the democratic space so that we don't have bad political leaders as much as possible. After all, it is in this same, before now, some people thought we can't even remove a governor, but it is in this democratic experiment, with all the flaws of the election, that some governors have lost their re-election bids, and the war didn't come to an end. If not for electoral malpractice and the powers bestowed on the emperor called president, we would have removed presidents. I know the presidents that would have been removed. As a matter of fact, if you want to call a spade, Jonathan couldn't win his second bid, and we are not talking about that. Yes, Jonathan contested the election and lost, and admitted that he lost. It's a political culture that makes it impossible, because Jonathan could have decided that he won't lose that election. He could have actually decided as an individual, I won't lose it, and nothing will happen. Worst case scenario, some riots here and there, people will die. You roll out the tanks, and then you force them to keep quiet, and then you continue. It was Jonathan's personal democratic credential that saved Nigeria from the bloodshed and the chaos on that occasion. And that is what I'm saying, that if we can get more persons to look at Nigeria as being more important than their greed and political career, then we will actually strengthen the democratic experiment. And we need to also get to that point where we don't have to wait to elections to remove a bad president or governor. We have constitutional provisions for impeachment. And so many of these guys have done things that we should impeach them for. And because we have the National Assembly and State Assembly in the pockets of the executive, we use impeachment just to make noise. Sometimes a few rascals, but sometimes that's what the political rascals will gather, make noise that we're going to impeach. In fact, we're giving notice of impeachment, then we don't hear about it again. And that's not right. We don't play with such things. Unfortunately, that's what happens here in Nigeria. So, but look at the most powerful democracy in America. Look at what Clinton passed through. Look at what even Trump passed through. Of course, Richard Nixon actually had to go. So this is where democracy works, with all the power of the president in office, all the things Richard Nixon did in America to survive Watergate scandal. It cost him his job. as a president of the most powerful nation in the world. But in Nigeria, you can't impeach a governor because he's a governor. He wants to control the judges, he controls the judiciary in his pocket, he controls the legislation in his pocket. Those are more fundamental problems than whether you are there for 4 years or 6 years. Because if you don't fix these problems, if the person is there for 6 years, it can be 6 years of hell. Then after that, you will install another person to cover his tracks. That is because he must have stolen billions in 6 years. So you will not, the election you think you will not be interested in, you will be more interested in it, and you'll be more entrenched in power. And you will now fight tooth and nail to install a governor who will cover his tracks, and a governor that is better than, he doesn't want to install someone who is better than him, who will actually make his records look bad. So we'll keep going on a downward spiral. That means we'll go and get a tout and make him governor to cover his tracks. And then the 6-year cycle continues. So while it looks good on paper, I'm scared that if we don't treat our fundamental problems and we go and bring in that 6-year tenure, we are just condemning ourselves to 6 years of suffering and 6 years of ineptitude in governance.
Well, Mr.
And
Larry,
then, it's a tricky situation. It's really a tricky situation. I was thinking about it the very first time I heard about it, and I was like, this is a very, very dicey situation. You cannot talk about that 6 years without looking at the safety valves. We must look at the safety valves.
okay, you talked about pros and cons. Maybe we'll get to the pros of it in just a moment. But I just wanted to let you listening know that you can join the conversation at any point in time. You can call 0808 312 8618 0808 312 8618. That is a number to call to be a part of the conversation. We're also live on YouTube. You can join us at Voice of the People Abuja. Voice of the People Abuja. We're having a conversation talking about a bill that has passed first reading, seeking a single year 6-year single term for president, governors, and local government chairmen here in Nigeria. And we've been looking at the pros and cons. Mr. Larry is very, very concerned for our safety, just in case, because, I mean, if you look at the past antecedents, we've not had a president, per se, who has done Nigeria well, except for the president, Olusegun Obasanjo. I mean, Goodluck tried to do what little bit he could with what he had at the time, but let's not even touch like that. Looking at the pros now, we're looking at the cost of governance. We're looking at how much it takes for one person to, that's the political process now, the campaigning process just before the elections. We spend so much, way too much money. And when we come into office, when we have presidents and governors come into office, they try as much as they can to recoup what they can for the first four terms, and then the first term rather, and then the next term. That's where we now see them doing one or two things, things that we can point at and say, okay, this is good. So couldn't this fight that? Mr. Larry?
Yes, I didn't hear the last thing you said.
I said so.
You said that. Yeah.
I was talking about the fact that we have such a high cost of campaigning, politicking, and all that. So, wouldn't a single 6-year single term work hard to cut the cost of those campaigning monies here and there, or would it just ramp it up right up because it's 1 year, one term you have, so you try as much as you can to recoup all that you have spent? I don't know. What's your take on that?
Well, one of the things, it can work both ways also. I was really thinking about it, and I realized that, first of all, we can reduce the cost of elections. The cost of campaigns and all of that may be difficult to control because our democratic culture, encourages giving people bouillon coups, noodles, rice, and all of that. And the structure of the election makes it expensive because the electorate actually collects these things. I think we need to be more concerned about the cost of conducting the elections, which we can reduce if we want to. We can actually dramatically reduce the cost of elections in Nigeria. not just reduced, but dramatically and drastically. We are very primitive in the way we conduct elections. We wake up in the morning and we start carrying ballot papers up and down. We hire forces, and we are so primitive about the way we conduct elections. And after all that trouble, what we get is something that looks like an election. And we have elections for the presidency separate and for the governorship separate. And that is, for me, a waste of resources. We can consolidate all of the elections in one day. So we can cut the cost of elections. And if we have strong institutions and strong security agencies, we can also, and a strong electoral body, we can monitor the cost of running these elections. That is, we can monitor the expenditure. We can even monitor the donations. Unfortunately, we are not interested in that. Both the opposition politicians and the people who are in power are not interested in anybody monitoring the cost of elections. They think it should be a free-for-all affair. It should be a free-for-all war. So let the most ruthless win. But the issue of how we conduct the elections can be improved drastically. And having said that, I think those are some more fundamental considerations. If we look at the fact that, that they will campaign and recoup money, the truth is that the savings will be insignificant compared to the real savings we should be looking at when we sanitize our electoral process and then sanitize leadership. The major loss we suffer as a nation is not because of whether it's 4 years or 6 years. It's because of the disposition of our political leaders and the fact that they don't get punished when they steal our money and when they do other things that should be punishable. The issue of immunity also is a fundamental issue. I think they should spend a lot of energy on sanitizing the political space so that citizens can vote and their votes will count, and the system can hold governors and presidents especially accountable for their misdeeds. You see, if we say we want one tenure of 7 years, 6 years, 5 years, if we toy with the tenure or whatever we call it, and we leave the fundamental problems we have as a democratic nation where they are, there won't be any improvement. You can take this to the bank. Because the point, I just used the example of, they will not campaign again for the election, but they'll campaign for the person they want to succeed them.
Mm-hmm.
So they will still come back to campaign. Do you know that in Anambra State, when Peter Obi was supporting Obiano, he was leading the charge. In Enugu State, when Sullivan Chime installed the man Charles as a governor to force him into office, literally speaking. And the man was a colossal disaster. I say it without any apologies and without any willingness to modify my position. Any State person, he was such a colossal disaster that his own people decided he wouldn't even represent them at the Senate. But he was a man who was foisted on the people by a governor that was adjudged to have performed reasonably well by his people. So on the platform of the popularity generated by Sullivan Chime, they just voted him into office. Oh, it's PDP state. Sullivan endorsed him. I'm just trying to explain to you that it's not whether it's 4 years or 6 years. The only thing that we're postponing the evil day by 2 years. And in that 2 years, a lot of bad things can happen to us. The people, for instance, that were rejected by their own electorate. For instance, Hakim could have led Imo State for another 2 years. I don't know how they would have fared. I don't know if Richards even did much better, but that's not the conversation here. So I think what we need to do more is to strengthen our capacity to stop these men and women from raping the state and the citizens. It is more fundamental. So when we begin to look at some of the things I mentioned, including the issue of impeachment, the issue of how to ensure that people don't do anything they like and hide under immunity, the issue of how much elections cost, the issue of not swearing in political contestants until the matter is decided in court. There are so many fundamental issues that are facing us as a young democratic nation. Yeah, and if we think that just moving from 4 years to 6 years is a full saver bullet without solving those other problems, we're actually wasting our bullets. We're wasting our time. There are more fundamental issues,
All
and we
right.
must deal with them. If we get the fundamental issues right, whether it's 4 years or 6 years, we'll do better. Just understand this last sentence. If we get the fundamental issues right, whether we do 4 years or 6 years, we'll do better. Because we can actually influence the person who is supposed to be leading us. Presently, they consider us like pawns in a game of chess. We don't influence them. They don't really care about us. They don't care about our opinions even. We are just there. And they wait for the next election to manipulate the illiterate electorate. And I say this illiterate advisedly. That is, when I say illiterate, I mean politically illiterate. They may be educated, they may be lettered, but you see, they're either selfish and greedy or they are illiterate. So we have two extremes. We just have a few enlightened persons in this space. Many of the politicians are educated, but they are not enlightened to the extent that they don't understand that common good is better than selfish interest. They don't believe that. They don't know that. They prefer to scatter the whole space and just make sure they get their own money, keep it abroad for themselves and their immediate family. And that is the problem we have. And then the electorate, rather than try to figure out how to stop the madness, they actually just to join the privileged class of political appointees and beneficiaries from the madness. And that is why we're here. So we need to begin to look at the fundamental problems. Can we stop this issue of let me win the election so while I'm the governor, the matter can be in court? No, let us do it such a way that when we finish and we have finished everything, we say this person is our governor. We look like a set of mad people to other countries of the world where you have a president that you are not sure that he will continue to be president, or a governor that you are not sure that he will continue to be governor. It makes us look bad. It makes us look like we're laughing stock of democracy in the world. And we're not talking about it enough.
All
and
right.
It's not rocket scientific.
All right. There seems to be a lot of influence in terms of getting good governance. This democracy that we're shouting and celebrating about, there seems to be a lot of factors preventing us from being truly democratic and truly getting good leadership in all our strives and endeavors and all of that. And it's very jarring to me to see that. There are so many loopholes in which this same narrative of bad governance may continue. It's very very haunting to me to realize that. But anyway, let's leave this conversation of this bill seeking a 6-year single term for the governors, president, and local government chairman. Let's move on to this issue of minimum wage. I just want to touch this in passing before we wrap up the show. Labour finally settled for 70,000 naira minimum wage. Mr. Larry, God, after all the draggings up and down. After all the draggings up and down.
I told anybody who cared to listen that all those figures they were banding about wasn't going to happen. I wasn't expecting anything more than 100,000. I said it clearly, and I knew it didn't even make sense. That's the truth. You can't just wake up one day and throw 200k minimum wage into the Nigerian economic space. You kill the whole country. So I understand that they were flexing their muscles and trying to make a point. But I think the Labour should be more strategic about holding government accountable. I think Labour should really have a critical role to play in this space. Their research unit should be more active and effective. I'm embarrassed by the fact that they are not really doing anything in terms of the area of research. They have so much money. They have not even told us. They are not transparent themselves. Sorry, but I have to say this. They need to tell us how much money they are getting and what they do with it as Labour. Because I think they should have a very, very efficient and cerebral research unit that will hold government accountable consistently and across the board. They should have an economic analysis unit. They should have a political analysis unit. They should have a welfare unit, welfare research unit. They should have research units that will look in deeply into the Nigeria situation and recommend solutions and enlighten the people too. They should have an enlightenment unit that will replace National Orientation Agency, because National Orientation Agency is moribund. They are not doing these things. Well, we have 70,000. They said that they will be reviewing the minimum wage from time to time, so that they won't have to wait for 5 years. But the most important thing is that we just wasted a lot of time talking about something that should have taken less time, which is good. The government was basically buying time, trying to save some money, buying time, and trying to wear them down, which they have succeeded in doing. And now we have the new minimum wage. I hope the government is also thinking of how to adjust a little in their spending spree. To be able to pay the new minimum wage. You know, we just told half of the story. Some states are not paying 35,000. Some states are still paying 20-something thousand. Some states, the many states are paying what they want to pay. And I don't know how they're going to get states to pay 70,000. I don't know how they're going to get organized private sector that is practically being choked to death by crazy taxes and
the policies and all that.
Production environment. I went to a radio station yesterday and we couldn't hold our program. My heart bled. This is a station that has never been off air and it has been around for 10 years. Yesterday they were off air for 6 hours because of diesel. I knew that we were in trouble. That was when they started telling us hard luck stories of stations that ration time, of businesses that have closed. Yesterday, I went home from that experience almost depressed. So that is the challenge we have. And sitting on top of that challenge, you expect to organize private sector to pay 70,000. If you insist on that 70,000, they will insist on reducing their workforce to survive, or they will close shop and the workforce will not even get 7 naira. So these are some of the issues we also have to begin to deal with. Many states will not pay the 70,000. Organized private sector, they are even trying to survive. They won't pay 70,000. So labor and government should also understand that they have a duty to make sure that the economic environment looks up to the extent that that 70,000 will become realistic for institutions and governments other than federal government to pay.
Mr. Larry, they gave a reason that the president said if he was going to pay 250,000 naira as minimum wage, then he was going to hike up the price of petrol. Because of that, that's why they conceded to the 70,000 naira. I don't know. It just rubbed me off as blackmailing in nature.
Well, I also think that what the president told us indirectly is that he's subsidizing the price of petrol. So if you want me to give you 250,000, I'll remove the subsidy and use it and give you the subsidy. Which one do you want? The subsidy or the money?
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Larry. We absolutely appreciate you. It's Friday. I hope you have a very restful weekend as well.
Yes, I intend to, and I wish you do that too. I know it's very tough doing this every day, but you're also doing a good job. I listen to the voice of the people. It takes time to change the way people think, and I know that over time, the people in Abuja and beyond will come to appreciate what the voice of the people is doing, and the more they appreciate it, the more they will listen to the voice of the people and align with the voice of the people. Do have a wonderful weekend, guys.
Thank you so much. All right, as normal, right here on the arena, we always have the sports bit, segueing off current affairs or political and all of that. So yesterday we saw FIFA rankings and the Super Eagles dropped again by 1 place from 38 to 39.
Yeah.
No, so was it not yesterday that you were dragging with me that the what do they call it? The Super Falcons should be paid less because of yeah. Now I went ahead to check the Super Falcons rankings, and they are first in Africa.
Okay.
Look at our women doing big things. They are first in Africa. They are ranked 36th in the world, still higher than the Super Eagles that you people will not allow us breathe about.
I don't want to throw spanner in your work, but I want to remind you that these Olympics, their first Olympic in 16 years. I also want to remind you, not champions of
Well,
Africa.
is it an issue of talent or it's an issue of management?
They're not even the first in Africa when it comes to the Women African Cup of Nations. They lost the semi-finals, and South Africa are champions for the first time. So,
is it not still higher than your Super Eagles?
Come on,
is it not still higher? Are they not still doing better?
I could still argue there's a decline, you know. But anyway, kudos to the girls. First in Africa, 36 in the world, but men. See, I think FIFA has been kind, you know. After our abysmal performance at the World Cup, losing to Benin Republic in a neutral ground.
Benin Republic.
Not in their home ground, in a neutral ground. They just said, okay, drop to one place, but remain fifth in Africa.
Super Eagles na the 4-person hand. But
this was a team that was in the top 20 when they won we got to the semi-finals of the African Cup of Nations. Yeah, that's how good they were. It was a point in Nigeria was in the top 10, but now Nigeria is 39th and dropping.
And still dropping.
Absolutely.
Hey, God have mercy. All right, go ahead.
Anyway, let's start off from, of course, today we'll be starting from we'll talk women football. We'll come to that very soon. But let's start from the Ministry of Sport Development, where we hear that the minister did have a media parley with, of course, with so many men, and he spoke a lot about so many things. They talked about the Minister of Sport. I talked about Senator John Owen. And first of all, he said that there's 12 billion naira is the budget for the Olympic Games, talking about the preparation and, of course, the reward. He did speak about the fact that, talked about the Minister of Sport. He said a lot of things. He spoke about the fact that Nigeria are trying to, as much as possible, to surpass the 1994 Olympic Games as well. And then he also assured Nigerians of a good timing campaign. He said that for the gold medal, reward is $5,000, $3,000 for silver, $2,000 for bronze. And of course, he did say that the job of appointing a Super Eagles coach is not his job. It's for the NFF. Yes. And then he's been going around the world trying to get sponsorship deals for not only Nigerian football, but sports in general as well. So he's been talking to us. He said the entitlement will be paid to the athletes, before the players, the athletes depart for the Olympic proper. They're in camp far away in Germany. Let's hear from the Minister of Sports about Senator John Owen. And this is what he had to say.
12 point something billion. That's the budget that we have. And that is divided into two. For the Olympics, it's about 9. And for the Paralympics, 3 point something billion. As sports minister, my aspiration is to surpass the records that were earlier set. Not about the Olympics of last 4 years, but from the Olympics of 1996, which remains our best ever performance. Before the team leaves for Paris, I'm going to have the opportunity of visiting that team, and just like I did in Accra, Ghana for the African Games, I'm going to be able to let them know from 1 to Z all what their entitlements are. Team Nigeria captain to the Olympics will be unveiled before they leave for Paris. I believe that will be done.
Okay, now let's leave the sports ministry for a moment and then touchdown Davis Cup, where we hear Nigeria returned from a 3-0 losing spree against Namibia, but recovered yesterday with a 3-0 victory against Cote d'Ivoire in the Davis Cup Group 3 happening here in Abuja. The Michael Emmanuel defeated Frankie Marshall 6-1, 6-3. Bulus Christopher returned from a disappointing loss to win 6-1 against Fredis Koulibaly, and of course the doubles Bulus combined with Daniel Adeleye to win the Cote d'Ivoire pair of Hamani Koulibaly 6-7-6 to ensure a 3-0 victory in that encounter. The players will be playing next against the Benin Republic today, hoping to secure one of the promotion slots from the Africa Group 3 to Africa Group 2. Let's listen to the coach of the coach of course, the Davis team, talking about the tennis team here in Abuja. He had a lot to say about why they lost the game day before yesterday and how well they responded with that victory against Cote d'Ivoire. Let's listen to Coach Benson Isijele, Cheli. This is what he had to say.
My name is Benson Isijele, Davis Cup captain for Team Nigeria.
Okay, yesterday wasn't what we all planned for as Nigerians in the competition, yeah. But today looks like a good day for Nigeria tennis. Talk to us, how was it like to get three games of this a clean sweep against Cote d'Ivoire?
Yesterday we had 2 of our players down. They were not feeling too well. Fortunately for us today, we were able to get them with physio and stretching. They were able to be up today. So, and today we said let's go for the maximum point, and that is what we got.
Okay, what changed from yesterday?
The two players down from yesterday. We had two key players that were down. One was having a bit of malaria, one was having diarrhea.
So now, the race for the qualification is still on.
It's still on.
What's your words to Nigeria? And do you think Nigeria can still get out of this group?
Yes.
Group 2?
Yeah, we will. Definitely. That's a guarantee I gave, and I'm going to fulfill that promise.
That is the coach of Team Nigeria. Moving on, let's go to the Sand Eagles. For the first time in 4 years, we now have the Sand Eagles. Yes, officially confirmed by the NFF. We hear that, of course, the man will be Abdullahi Issa. Is appointed as the coach of the Super Sand Eagles. He'll be assisted by, of course, Coach Christopher Kadri. And, of course, Samuel Abasha will be the goalkeeper coach. We hear the team that comprises of Victor Tale, the likes of Adam Stairway, Manuel Hofora, Arome Issa, Godwin Tale, Chidozie, Frank Hassan, Abdullahi, and Agan Oseni. They arrived in Abuja today from Kaduna and flew away for Mauritania early hours of this morning. Let's listen to, of course, the president of the Nigeria Football Federation speaking to the team just before they departed for Lagos late last night. He had a lot to say about the team and how they should bring smiles to Nigeria. Let's hear from the president, Alhaji Ibrahim Guzo.
I think for the past almost 5 years, we have not been participating now, because of the way we saw some commitments, that's why we feel it's important for us to bring it back. And then it happens to be the first set of players that we are going to use to try and see how we can bring back beach soccer in Nigeria. So I want you to try and use this opportunity to encourage us. Because if you go there, we want you people to encourage us. So that at least we will do more. So therefore, we should take it as a very big test to you. And by the grace of God, we will do our best. It's not easy, but I still insist that we'll try, as we promised, that we are bringing back soccer. We will surely bring it back.
That is the president of the Nigeria Football Federation. He said it's not easy. He did all he can to bring back big soccer to Nigeria, and it is back. Now, I'll be on a crash course in the next 60 seconds. I'm out of here. Come on, guys. A lot of transfers went down yesterday. Let's start off from Europe. We hear, of course, Man United have signed Yeri Rolo. He signed from Lille. He's joined for £2.7 million. Zlatan Ibrahimovic club as well. Zlatan Ibrahimovic's son, talking about Maximilian, has signed for AC Milan. He'll play for the under-18. I'm talking about Maximilian as well. Kasper Schmeichel has been here. We'll be heading to Scotland. We're playing for Celtic. That is what we're hearing as well. He joined Celtic from the French League 1. That's what we're hearing as well. So a lot of movement, I tell you, in the transfer market. Mason Greenwood has departed Man United. He will be playing his trade in no other than, of course, Marseille in the French League 1 as well. And that's how it will be for Nigerian players across board. So it is what it is for Nigeria. That's how much they would be having, talking about the transfer market. One man as well, Kelechi Iheanacho, the physio has debunked that he's injured. He's a free agent after he left Leicester City after the expiration of his contract. He said he's fit to go, as we hear that so many Premier League clubs are also looking for his signature. Graham Potter says he wants a job. He wants to return back to management. Don't forget, he hasn't gotten a job since he was fired by Chelsea, talking about the English Premier League in that encounter. Oh, quickly in Nigeria, also we hear that, of course, Academy Warriors will be playing here in Abuja at the Moshood Abiola Stadium. That's where they'll be playing their CAF Confederations Cup game. The sport minister did talk about it, that they have called for the use of the stadium because the stadium did not pass the required test of Mekaiba. Abdul Mekaiba has been unveiled as the coach of Wicked Tourists in the Nigerian National League officially. And of course, one man wants to force a move out of his team. I'm talking about no other than Victor Osimhen. He wants to move to Paris Saint-Germain. He could become the next marquee signing of the team after they lost Kylian Mbappe to Real Madrid as a free agent. Finally, in tennis, I have to go back to tennis because I need to end with other sports, guys. One man is having the time of his life. His name is no other than Rafa Nadal. He won his second round of the Swedish Open, beating British Cameron Norrie 6-4, 6-4 to win that one. And it is what it is. It is what it is. For Man City, they've got Savio, but I tell you, is that a transfer when Girona and the team is coming from are both owned by the Man City Football Club owners. But anyway, he's a Man City player. He's been bought for over 30 million pounds. Guess this is how much I can take on spot this morning.
All right. Thank you so much for your time this morning. It's Friday, of course. What exactly is the sports going to look like for tomorrow and for Sunday?
Unfortunately, we are still having still off. Club football is over. Well, it's now in pre-season. Europa League, the European Championship is off. We now know we have a champion. Spain. The Copa America is also over. Argentina are champions.
So men, pretty much men can finally stay home with their wives and be bored together.
Absolutely, they can bond with their kids. But anyway, there's still a lot to happen in tennis. Yeah, I talked about the Sweden Open when Nadal won against Cameron Norrie. You could watch tennis, a little bit of Formula One as well. But for football, it's all about friendly
Football
games.
season is over.
Don't worry, it's not too long. August is how
It's
long
just
from it?
a few weeks away.
And you lose your husbands again to the televisions.
All right, thank you so much, Nonso, for your time. Of course, I'm going to be signing out as well. Coming up at 9 is Ogendigbo. Of course, you're not going to be lonely at this point in time because I've got Ashake now playing. Gesera is my name.
And I am the sport bishop, Nonso Arinzechi.